call the meeting to order. First, previous minutes. Any move to approve previous minutes?
Motion.
Second.
Moved by Frank, second by Joe. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? All right. I think the first two items are going to be tabled at the request of the sponsor. Sam Fine is not here, and so those will be tabled. Item 3, resolution number 120, public hearing on proposed local law number D. That 3 and 5, Joanne Cunningham, the author, has designated me to speak on her behalf in her absence. This is it's just for the public hearing, and there will need to be an amendment to it. Brandon, you want to explain?
Sure. In this, we need to amend the date, because the date is currently March 26th. We're going to move it to June 25th, tentatively. And also, and part of this amendment would be changing the title.
June what?
June 25th.
I think you better change that.
Yeah.
I'm getting to that, Frank. You're absolutely right. The other part would be changing just the verbiage in the title here, where it explains Ms. Cunningham has changed the title of the local law itself, so just make it so that the resolution calling for the public hearing properly reflects the title, which is item 4. The reason that the date, I understand the date is the same date as the primary. Currently, the committees are set up where that is the tentative date. What would make the most sense would be to, if these are all moved out with the same date, June 25th, we can amend them all on the floor after leadership has gotten together and found out what date is the most useful or the best date for the public hearing if we're not going to have it on the 25th. But then we can amend all the other public hearing resolutions that will be coming out of other committees as well at the same time.
Is that all clear?
Why hasn't leadership did that already?
I do not have an answer for you, no.
Anybody answer that? Chairman?
All I can say is that several dates have been looked at. They all seem to have one issue or another associated with them, so it's not as easy as we thought it might be in the normal month, where you could just pick a date and it would seem kind of easy to say that's a good date. There are a lot of different moving parts here with 4th of July weekend and other things that are kind of making it more difficult to find a date.
I appreciate what you said, but I don't believe it. I don't think it should be that hard to create a date between the leadership. It doesn't really make any sense. That's my opinion. That's all.
Yeah.
Mr. Chairman, a procedural issue. I know that we have passed resolutions to allow any of the named sponsors to speak, but you're not on either one of those. And you just said that Joanne had said that you could speak on them. That's not within the rules of the legislature.
Ms. Cunningham did send, she did.
But actually, I should be listed.
But you're not.
Nobody is.
Sorry.
Ms. Cunningham did, she did put in comporting with the resolution, she did put in writing the designation of Mr. Reinhardt for both those resolutions.
Yeah, but
that's-
you can't even do it.
There's no rule that allows you to do that.
Part of the resolution itself is that in writing, the sponsor is designated by the person who would introduce the resolution itself. In this case, Ms. Cunningham has introduced it. Now, if there's questions about if that resolution should be updated or looked at again to see if there should be a more fleshed out process, that's entirely possible and up to the members of the committee. But as the resolution is currently written, she has complied, or it has been complied with.
I beg to differ. If I'm not mistaken, I was a sponsor of the resolution. That wasn't in there. So, but it was just a point. It was just a point of order. That's all, Mr. Chairman. I mean, what we're doing, it's not a big issue, but I don't want us to create new procedures on the fly like this that have not been vetted and gone through the normal process through the legislature, excuse me.
Yeah. I'm not on the committee, but can I make a comment here?
Sure.
I'm here this month because there was a month I couldn't come. There was no way for me to designate somebody. So why are we doing it differently?
Well, that was a recent change that came about?
Recent as in the
Recent
last
change.
30 days?
Well, either yes, or you had the option and you didn't take it. I'm not sure what the right answer is.
Maybe we should do it.
Richard, I have a question.
Yes, sir.
Was the original intent that if there were other co-sponsors of the bill, they could then be designated?
Yes, if they were designated within the framework of the printed resolution or local law, then they could speak. What we were running into, and the genesis of the whole thing, is that we kept running into issues where there was only one person who could literally speak on an issue, and it was delaying, and it was meant to kind of get things through the process by having multiple designees. Anyone who was, as a noted sponsor, could then speak on it. But nowhere in there did it say that somebody could designate an individual to speak on their behalf if they were not a noted sponsor, that I recall.
Well, I will confess, I thought I was a sponsor.
On local,
Yeah, you're on number
on
4.
local law D, you and I are both sponsors
That's the
on
actual
4,
law,
but not on,
not on the public
you
hearing.
also have.
Can we just hold this to our procedures followed?
It is just the
Given that
public
the
hearing.
issue really doesn't apply to, what is it, 4, item 4, it only applies to 3, because I am listed on D. I'm not listed on the public hearing local law. Given that it is only a public hearing, can we proceed and simply say, well, you know, we understand we should clarify. I think it might have just been an oversight to not list the other co-sponsors on the public hearing as opposed to the law. Is it automatic that, you know, should all the names on a law as co-sponsors or prime sponsors be transferred to a public hearing notice? Was that something that should have happened and didn't?
That's not something that we've done in the past.
That's just internal procedural.
When you say it's not something that's been done in the past, you mean?
As in an automatic option where if you asked me to do a local law, that we had to do resolutions, you can explicitly tell us.
It's like shopping bags.
There's a question regarding. So she.
I mean, Chairman, if we don't list them on here, and this is the documentation that we have to review, how do we know who the sponsors are?
Therefore.
How do we know what?
Who the sponsors are?
Well, I mean, in fact, we have the sponsors of the law, the proposed law deeds.
Yeah, which is, according to what I have in front of me, only has Ms. Cunningham's name on it.
Item 4, local law D, has all of the sponsors listed.
Well, that's interesting. What's on the website then is not the same as what we are getting in the package.
Well, no, Vicky's talking about the local law, item 4.
Oh, okay, the actual law.
Yeah.
Sorry, okay. I was looking at the public hearing.
Yeah, sure. Okay, thanks.
I make most we table the next meeting, until it gets resolved.
Well, I mean, the only resolve is we seem to have followed what the law is saying we should do. Richard is pointing out the intent of the law, which was that that any designee be a co-sponsor, which in fact is the case with the actual law. So it seems like our process maybe needs to catch up with the fact that when we have a public hearing resolution, we should automatically include the co-sponsors of the law.
Well, until we catch up, can we put a hold on it?
I don't know that we need to quite, isn't she permitted by writing to designate you
Well, that
as
seems
a
to
prime
be what
sponsor
Brendan is saying.
on 3? And if she designated you by writing to be a sponsor on 3, then we should be okay. It's just not printed here, but you have a separate writing
Yeah.
up to that effect.
Mr. Chairman, could I just raise one substantive issue? I'm looking through the legislation. It refers in generic terms to the Recyclable Bag Act at the state level, but it doesn't cite the legislation. I mean, I would think that we would want a specific cite to the state legislation in this so that in case they use that same term for something else in the future, we don't have any confusion. Just, so if it does get tabled, I would ask that be, it's a minor change, but if that could be rectified.
That's a good point.
I think it's probably more important to address that in the actual local law item D, since I don't think there's much chance for confusion right now in terms of a public hearing, given the recent passage of the state law. But in terms of future, I think probably item 4 should address that and include the language of the state law.
That'd be the question for the sponsor.
Yeah.
Why do we need to rush this to change the date to June 25th? Because when we get there on June 25th, we're going to change the date again.
Well, just to clarify, we could, if the date was changed and the committee did move these two forward, the date would be June 25th for the purposes of getting it out of this committee. But then on the night of the legislative meeting on the 10th, there would be a version with whatever date has been decided for the scheduling for the public hearing instead of on that date. But just for the purposes of getting them out of committee, if that's the committee's desire, then June 25th is the tentative
We
date.
could address the title of the state law at the same time, as part of the same.
Well, I got a motion on the floor, I got a motion on the table. Table this.
I'll second.
Table both. No rush. You're
Any
right.
other comments?
Might as well get it right the first time.
Okay, so this is a vote on the tabling of Resolution 120, public hearing, item 3. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed?
Opposed.
So it
I'm
moves
sorry.
out of committee, I mean, it's tabled.
I'm sorry, Frank, were you
Oh,
were you in
Yeah,
favor
item
of?
3-4.
3-4, okay. So 4-2 is the final vote.
Okay, so the motion is tabled. I mean, the resolution. Okay, item 4 has to be tabled. And item 5, this is the public hearing of proposed local law number F.
It's the same.
Same issue.
Same issue.
Make a motion.
Second.
To table?
Correct.
Okay. Any discussion? All right, so we have a motion to table?
Yep.
Second?
Aaron seconded.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Two. All right, motion is tabled. Item 6, local law number N for 2018, a local law of the County of Albany, New York, amending section 1101 of the Albany County Charter, and local law number 8 for 1993, as subsequently amended to promote the hiring of an economic development director.
Thank you. It's a local letterhead. This has been around since May.
Oh, I'm sorry, we can't proceed then because it says number.
That's all right, I designated it to be a number. In writing. This has been around since May of 2018. It's one paragraph of incredible legislation I'd like to see move out today to the floor. I think we're all very familiar with it. Mr. Chairman, you've discussed it with me at length in the past. We've incorporated changes to verbiage surrounding the specificity of qualifications for the Economic Development Director. So I'd like to ask you to move this out today so we can put it to the floor.
Well, I do want to say there's one word that's wrong. May.
I'm sorry?
May. Experience may include. I think it should be shall. More of a directive. May is an ignorable word. And so you know my concerns. I think they're still valid without a more firm choice of words.
Well, it does say the director shall be a person qualified by economic development experience, which I think being that's the title, it's fairly, is a directive. The may part may include sort of a myriad of training in these fields. So I think we've got shall and we've got may in there.
Mr. Chairman, I'd just like to make a comment. If you do change that may to shall, then wouldn't that indicate that they would have to have all of that training in order to be qualified? And it's not an
That would be
option.
and or, do you think?
It's and or. I mean, I guess I want to go on the record. It's my concern here is we're creating a position that will no longer be a technical position. It will be a patronage position. That's my concern.
Well, I mean, if I may, most of these are patronage positions regardless.
Well, we're just making it a little bit easier.
If I may, this just opens it up to a wider range of qualifications that we can hope that the executive and the legislature will see fit to vet the proper person. I mean, I don't think you can ever guarantee getting the person with the right credentials in these jobs. It's our job to sort that out.
I think we're lowering the bar here.
Minority.
So
No, I think we're
creating a
expanding the
larger
bar.
pool of lower qualified people who can be eligible for this position.
Well, but again, I'm expanding the bar here, making it a little bit wider game of limbo so that we can get people with economic development experience and/or, which may include professional training in these other areas. Since we have Albany County Planning Department, since we already have 2 planners on staff at the county executive's office, I think we're well versed in regional and urban planning. So if this person doesn't have specific experience in that regard, but does have other experiences outlined here, that person could bring something to the table that might inject some new life into the role. So that's the idea. We still have the opportunity.
I understand your idea, I think. But
we still have the opportunity to vote that person down if they're appointed, and if he or she is appointed and falls short of the mark. And then I would intend to do that myself.
Yeah. Well, I still am not comfortable with taking the professional training out of it as a requirement. And it seems like that's basically what's still happening here.
Right, but this isn't an urban planning job, Mr. Chairman. This is an economic development job.
It's actually both.
And that's why they've got a staff of urban planners.
Maybe what they ought to do is have a well-trained planner who justifies the higher salary and then get some lower-paid economic development experts who don't have the same training as the planner does for a job like this. And by the way, it's not urban planning, it's city and regional planning, which is what we are as a county. And that's why I think that's important.
Well, then I think, we can take this to the floor and we can
Let them decide.
we can let the body decide. I'll state my position and what I'm envisioning here, and people may agree or disagree, but I think it's, after 12 months of pure bliss awaiting the designation of this committee, I think it's time to end the vacation and put this out to the floor.
Mr. Chairman,
And I
I'll move
agree.
it. I'll move it.
I'll second it.
Any other comments?
I would just, if I may, I would agree with your interpretation of the word may, that anything following economic development experience doesn't apply if you use the word may. So they only need to be qualified by economic development experience. Everything else is extra.
Yeah, so it's all very discretionary. And I just would like to say, before we vote, I think what we'll see is a downgrading of this position in terms of qualifications. And I think it's going to be perceived as we're creating another patronage position, which I think is unfortunate because I don't think that's what good government should be about. Okay.
And I tend to agree with you, and I also tend to agree that 39 legislators will bring this up when it comes out to the floor, let everybody talk about it. Couldn't be a better place to discuss this than in front of all 39 legislators. So that's why I think it should be moved out. We'll get input, then we'll make sure it ain't a patronage job, but we know we have no patronage jobs in the county anyway, so we're not gonna start with this. In case you don't know, Mr. Cook.
So the sponsor's laughing at that comment, Gil.
I don't know why you do that.
All right, so all in favor of moving this out of committee as is?
Aye.
Aye.
Frank? No. All opposed? Frank, you are a no? I'm a no, you're a no. So what do we have, 3 and 3?
Mr. Chairman, I move to move it out of committee with no recommendation.
Second.
What happens with
We didn't get the chairman's ruling on this yet.
Oh,
What's the rule?
3 goes down the
Okay, so the proposal to move out favorably fails.
Yep.
And now there's a motion on the floor.
No, wait, what happened to 3-3 tie? That passes automatically.
It's no,
No, it's defeated.
no, it's no vote.
Defeated.
Just
What
defeat
does that
automatic.
mean when it's a 3-3?
It fails.
No vote.
Needs a majority.
No vote. So we got nothing.
Now, I want a question addressed, Brandon, I want you to address the question. Richard, you are suggesting or moving that we move it out without a recommendation.
Correct.
Correct.
And I would like an explanation of what is the significance of that versus the motion, the previous motion was defeated.
Okay. The committee can move an item in three ways. It can move it with recommendation saying that the committee endorses the proposal before it. It can move it without recommendation saying that the committee essentially takes no position on the motion itself, just that they want to move it out to the floor of the membership. Or finally would be a negative recommendation saying that the committee as a whole disapproves of this, but still thinks that the legislature should have a chance to discuss this with all 39 members. So right now, there's a motion for without recommendation.
Without recommendation. That's,
That was the third of the options that you just said, right?
The second is without. The third is a negative recommendation, which is when the committee says that we disapprove of this
Oh,
in its entirety.
so
but we're still
basically
getting it
2
out.
or 3, it still goes to the floor.
Yeah.
without recommendation.
Without recommendation or with a negative recommendation, it still goes to the
Two
floor.
different
Sure,
votes.
if those are the two motions, yes,
Yeah.
it would go to the floor.
Okay, so we have a motion to send it out of committee without recommendation.
Correct. And obviously, with a 3-3 vote, it makes a lot of sense to send it to the floor where it can be debated at that point in time and voted on by the entire legislative body.
Yeah. Any discussion on this?
I just want to say I agree with my colleague here. That's the fairest way, send it out with no recommendation and let the body decide the merits of the
And does,
resolution.
so the record will show that there was a 3-3 vote?
The record being the minutes will show that there was a 3-3 vote and the motion was defeated, yes.
Okay.
The only thing they'll show in the disposition for the bottom of the local law itself would say, without recommendation, Conservation, Sustainability, and Green Initiatives Committee, and then today's date. That would be on the bottom of this local law, if it passes out of law as well.
Okay,
So change your vote from maybe 4-3.
so we're voting on to move it out without recommendation.
Not on this one.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
I'm going to say aye on this. And I think, Todd, your vacation is over. And I'll see you at the next session. And I oppose, I'm sorry.
Those opposed?
Was there opposed, Vicki?
I'll stay as opposed.
Okay. Frank, you were a yes, right?
I'm a yes.
Thank you.
Okay. So 5 to
Yeah,
1,
why not?
and Todd and I will talk about this more on the floor.
I can't wait to hear that discussion.
You're going to hear
This
the
is like
same
American
thing.
Idol, only more exciting.
Okay, yeah, item 7, local law number F.
It was correct.
Local law to require Albany County restaurants and eating establishments to provide straws and plastic cutlery only upon request.
Oh,
And this is tabled because the sponsor is not here, and you need the public hearing first. Anyway.
That's correct.
Add me to this, or do we get rid of it?
You gotta stop beating up these small businesses.
Get added?
I think it'll be condiments.
Frank, I'm looking to you for a motion to adjourn.
You are. I can't do that.
You can't do that? Okay, is there a motion?
Motion to
A second.
Why do you look at
Second.
this?
Second.
Boy, that could be the longest.
It's one of those things